Hey family, hope everybody's doing good, having a good day. If nobody's told you yet or made you feel loved today, I just wanted to tell you how much you're loved and how much you are appreciated in this world, no matter how much the world wants to make you feel like you're not loved and not valued. Today was definitely an interesting day, so I had to come out to one of my favorite spots just to try and soak up some sunlight and just connect more with Mother Nature and process and transmute some emotions that I was feeling in the moment. One of the biggest things that looking at right now and definitely working on in my life is when it comes to breaking generational curses. Pretty much these days, in my opinion, is kind of, that term breaking generational curses has definitely become like a soundbite, because every time I see it, people are talking about it and saying how they're doing it or that we need to do it, but nobody ever really talks about what it looks like or how do you even identify what a generational curse is. So it's almost like a pseudonym. I mean, it's, they say it's like a generational curse, but, it's not, doesn't take on that same meaning to where it's like somebody's standing behind a closed door curtain or whatever it is, and they cast some illusion or cast some spell over your family and stuff. It's definitely, you don't even have to dig that deep. In my personal opinion, just the way it's personally expressed in my life is what things are being repeated constantly over from one generation to the next, that's being passed down to the next generation as an absolute truth that isn't an absolute truth when you step back and take a look at it. One thing about it is you always hear, well, there's somebody that's born into the family that's put there or is kind of the black sheep of the family, and they're the ones that identify or are supposed to identify what those curses are, so that way they can break it down for their lineage and they can ensure that that cycle isn't repeated going forward. So I definitely had a pretty interesting experience when it came to breaking what I call a pretty big generational curse when it came to my family lineage. So basically it had to revolve around my job. Being an Aquarius, definitely have the intelligence there, and just the way that I move, being a natural leader. I prided myself on using my intellect to be able to deduce things, break things down, and to move in a way that not other people just didn't move. And I was able to draw out things from people that most people can't, just because of who I am and my natural abilities that I have. So I was just going through, and basically my job, and, got promoted to a manager. And in that role, I would go and talk to, my father, just because, he spent many years as being a manager and was really looking to get some advice from him. And, he really had some great advice for me to help me out in a lot of different ways. But one day I was talking to my director, and we were talking, and basically some things happened based on some kind of lies, I guess, that were told about me and certain things. It wind up getting in a situation to where my job, pretty much got put in jeopardy. So because of how things were approached, me kind of having that chip on my shoulder and just thinking, well, hey, I'm getting high numbers, I'm hitting the mark, I'm doing better than all my peers in all aspects. There's nothing that I really needed to, I wouldn't say nothing I needed to work on, but just the consideration that was given, the thoughts, the feedback that I was being given. It, not to say that the feedback may not have been needed or necessary, but just the way that it was delivered, I saw myself getting very defensive and getting taken back from it, and really getting repulsed by the message. So in my mind, it pissed me off. It made me mad. And of course, just my natural inclination was, F this job. I haven't been getting the just dues, the recognition that I deserve based on the hard work. If you went and asked anybody within our department, when it comes to help, who's the person that they can count on or that they reach out to? And they will always tell you, Brandon, he thinks of things, he looks at things, has a perspective that most people don't see or most people don't have. And the way that he looks at data and breaks down data is second to none. So, I definitely kind of created a chip on my shoulder and stuff, and I saw that. But the thing is I didn't recognize at the time that was actually a generational curse in our family, in my particular family line, that needed to be broken. It wasn't until my dad came up and actually surprised me and my missus in regards to taking us out to dinner one time. And it was going through some challenges to where I basically just ended a long-term, 14-year relationship. And so naturally, any parent in that situation will try and do what they can to try and help you mend the fences or help do what they think needs to be done, which is reconcile. Coming from that generation, you just don't throw, and I don't want to use the word throw the relationship, throw away, but in their generation, when things happen, you stuck with it regardless, good, bad, or indifferent. You just stuck with it, leaving and ending the relationship because of whatever reason may be needed. Just ending relationships just wasn't really something that was done kind of in my family. You pretty much just put your head down, buried the emotions deep down, no matter how you felt, and you just kept pushing forward. So, he came up to visit, and I'm sure in sincere efforts of trying to get me to see the light and kind of get me to reconnect in that relationship. But ultimately, he didn't know at that point that I had already got an apartment and basically was in the process of moving and leaving the area. So, but that's not the story. That's just kind of a sidetrack, just to kind of say how, this whole conversation kind of came about. So it was during that time where we went out to dinner, where he rode with me over to the restaurant, and it was on the way back home, because he knew what was going on at work and new situations, he was just asking me, hey, how are things going at work? How are you doing? How are you dealing with the situation, et cetera, et cetera. And, it's just kind of going through, having general conversation and just letting him know and, giving him feedback and just telling him how, it was really kind of getting me down. I was really thinking about leaving and just kind of throwing my hands up and leaving the situation. And it was something that he said to me that I'll never forget. He was saying that, I know exactly, son, what you're going through. I know how you feel because I went through the very same thing at one of my jobs. And basically, it came to a point, and he did exactly what I wanted to do. He basically was just like, hey, I'm done with this job. He left that position and he went and got a job at another company. And the part that I won't forget is when he got out of the car. One of the last few things he said is when he left the one job where he was having the issue at and went to the new job, that lo and behold, the same exact scenario, or a scenario that rhymed with it, happened at his new position. And that kind of got me thinking. At the moment, whenever he mentioned it, I didn't even really think about it, just kind of filed it in the back of my mind and just kept pressing. Because, I clearly had a whole lot more other things on my mind that I really needed to process. So in that particular moment, it didn't really stand out. But it wasn't until I was sitting and meditating and just kind of reflecting on what was going on that I realized, Brandon, this is a generational curse that you're at the plate right now, or at the precipice of breaking. You're either going to stand up to the challenge and you're going to break it, or you're going to keep repeating the cycle. Because guess what would have happened if I would have left my job and went to get another job? Just like with my father, the same exact things would have happened, because I would have been repeating the same exact behavior that I did in my current job. I would have taken those things to the new job, and I basically would have been repeating those same things over and over and over again. And say in that new job, yes, the people would have been different, but eventually the things that I was expressing and the way that I was viewing the world would have got me into that same situation. In the new job situation, what was I going to do? Was I going to keep repeating the cycle and be like, hey, this job, they don't like me here either, so let me go find something else? So it was really thinking and reflecting on that when he was just like saying that he left his one job and went to go get another job and the same thing happened, I really kind of thought back in my childhood, and I can, vividly remember those situations and stuff. So I was just like, you know what? Despite how the message was delivered and how off-putting it was, was there some validity in the comments? Was there some validity in the feedback? And so when I took that new perspective and I reframed things, it really showed me that what was being said was beneficial and that there was some merit to be had from it. So instead of running away from it like my family traditionally did, thinking that it was somebody else externally to me that was causing these issues, I started to look within myself and was just saying that within myself, what things am I doing to contribute to the external reality, the external environment that the world was showing me? Because that's the one thing when you connect with in spirituality and you start going down this path of spirituality, is you will start to realize that people that are in your life or that you come in contact, the divine, or you can say God, or whatever name that you have for God, puts certain people in your place because there's lessons that we all need to learn. That's why sometimes, especially like in relationships or certain avenues, we will find ourselves dealing with the same exact scenario, but it's just a different face. It's just a different body. And that's your way of really identifying, hey, what's going on here? And that's the divine's way of trying to get you to realize, hey, this is a lesson for you to learn. And we always hear, well, if you haven't heard or sometimes hear, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And that's what I realized in this particular situation is I was looking at it, why is this happening to me? Why am I going through this? I'm a good person. I love people. I help people. I bend over backwards to try and help people to realize their true potential, their power within, especially when other people dim their light and come down on them. So I had a really hard time trying to realize, why is this happening to me when I do nothing but good in the world? But it wasn't until I it wasn't until I shifted my perspective from why is this happening to me into a mindset of what is this trying to show me? And so the most amazing thing happened to me is I can remember the day that I made that decision. It was like a light switch, or flipped in my head. And the crazy part about it is I was sitting in my work truck at work, and as I was going through like a typical Aquarius, being in your head, kind of ruminating, going over certain things, it was the most amazing thing that when I came to that realization, I looked at my truck. There's a stork just flying right by there. That's amazing. When I was sitting in my truck, basically, sorry, that stork, that was a beautiful sight that he just flew by here. And that's just another iteration of the divine and how certain things happen to show you that you're on the right path and stuff. So if you look up the symbology of storks and cranes, definitely be surprised that kind of me breaking out of my shell to really do this, because I never thought I'd be doing something like this. So the symbology behind that, if you look that up, it goes hand in hand with this, and to me, that's how the divine speaks to me. So, but basically the symbology of everything, it's through those actions that we realize and reflect. Oh, that's what I'm sorry. I got a little sidetracked with that stork there. So, but when I was sitting in my work truck and I had that epiphany or that realization, lo and behold, a feather basically fell out of the sky and landed directly on the hood of my truck. Some people can say, oh, it was just a coincidence. But what a lot of people don't know is just that since I've been on this spiritual journey, every time I come across a major milestone or a major hurdle in my life that I overcome, it's like the divine sends me a feather. So one day I'll have to show you guys my collection of feathers that I've had over the years. But one of the birds in my life right now that is very prevalent are crows. They, call out to me, reach out to me, and basically, they always appear, and it seems like whenever there's a message, whether I'm listening to something or I'm talking to someone, whenever there's a message that I really need to pay attention to, or the divine is using someone else to relay to me, crows are very significant in that instance. So I thought it was pretty ironic that during that moment when I had that epiphany, that it was a crow feather that basically fell directly on my truck. Now, you could call that coincidence or not, but what's the chances are that as soon as I have a major epiphany about a generational curse in my family that I was right at the precipice of breaking, that a feather would fall directly on my truck. It could have fallen anywhere in the whole parking lot or around the building, but it landed directly on my truck right in front of me. So to me, that was very impactful, and just a symbol of how the divine speaks in my life and speaks to me about various things. So long story short, I took a new approach from that point forward and basically started looking at, okay, I didn't like how the message was delivered, but let me embody these messages and let me take a look at it. And I dove head first into it, and basically by doing that, the entire dynamic with the relationship that I have with my boss now, my director, and even my team and my peers, it was one before of kind of, I don't want to say animosity, but it definitely wasn't a good working relationship, just because, again, following the lead of my father and kind of how he did things in the business world. We grew up as Jehovah's Witnesses, and as Jehovah's Witnesses, you don't associate with anybody outside of the religion. You go to work, you do your job, and you go home, and there's nothing, you don't really, associate with people outside of that, because, bad association spoils useful habits. That was something that was always drilled into us, and that was something that, even though I'm not a Jehovah's Witness and I don't practice anymore, that was something that I still embody. I went to work, I did my job, did what I had to do, associated with the people that I was required to because of the job, and didn't take it from there. But that was contributing to a negative environment, because my peers, imagine if you were going to work with somebody and you're peers with somebody and you're supposed to be working together on a team, but they don't include you, or they do things in their own wheelhouse. And you can definitely understand how that can contribute to a negative work environment and stuff. So, but it was like, once I recognized what I was doing, and I was just repeating a cycle over and over again that my family had been repeating, it wasn't until I recognized that, dove head first into it, and actually started embodying that change, that things changed in my life. And now the relationship, like I said, between my director, between my peers and everyone, has completely changed 180 degrees. And it's almost like now that, so in my opinion, it was the divine or God showing me, hey, this is a cycle that's been repeated over and over and over again. Those that came before you didn't learn the lesson, so now I'm putting this on your plate for you to learn this lesson, so that way you learn the lesson and you don't repeat it. So that way, when you talk to your lineage that comes after you, so I don't have children right now, but that's one of the things I'm looking forward to having, and why I'm making as many changes as I am, is so that way I can bring those children into the world. But it's a situation now to where I'm equipped to not pass on those cycles to my children, so that way once they go into their job or their working life, once the time comes, they're not repeating those same things over and over again, because it stopped with me. So that way now I can impart that knowledge onto them of how not to repeat those same cycles. So that's been pretty much my life for the past year and some change, is just looking at those cycles that have been repeated by people that came before me, seeing where those same cycles are appearing in my life that I am repeating also. And then once I recognize those cycles, is putting in the work to figure out, how do I ensure that that cycle stops with me and I don't pass on that cycle to my future generation. Or I have nieces and nephews, so Obviously, I'm not their parents. I can't control them, nor do I want to control them. But when those situations or those lessons come up in their lives to where I can impart knowledge to them, how do I impart the knowledge to them so that way they don't continue those cycles that they may have picked up along those same lines? So that's kind of the message of today. And like I said, just looking at it is just, when it comes to generational curses, it makes you think hocus pocus, this, that, and the fifth, just by the term itself. But I would say a better term is generational cycles. What generational cycles are you breaking, or can you break, or are being presented in your life right now that you are the one that's at the batting plate for your family to break? Could be something as simple as, I heard one time a gentleman was saying about, maybe your parents at a young age was always yelling at you and how it made you feel. So now having children, not yelling at your children, or finding a different way to express yourself to your children. So just throwing it as one example. So I'll definitely, if I can find the video of the one gentleman that I'm referencing there, I'll definitely make sure I link it. So that way you guys can review it, because there's definitely some good information there. So, but like I said, my new term is, instead of saying generational curses, I'm going to say generational cycles. So that's my question to you all is what generational cycles are present in your life right now that God or the divine is trying to get you to see by repeating it in your life over and over and over again? So I'll just take an example of relationship. Say if you're getting into a relationship and it ends a certain way, and you jump from that relationship to another relationship, and lo and behold, the relationship nothing is ever the same, but it rhymes, so to speak. So I think there's the old saying, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. So, and that's very much how it goes. So just using relationships, are you getting into relationships that were different people, but the same things are same themes are happening in the relationships, and you're just finding yourself going from one relationship to another, but these same themes keep repeating themselves within them? That's your way of knowing that this is a generational cycle that you're intended to break. So the question becomes, are you going to be the person in your family to identify those cycles and to end those cycles so that way they aren't imparted to your children and to future generations? Or are you going to allow those cycles to continue because you don't feel like you're strong enough to be able to break them, and you just allow them to carry on their natural course and be passed down to your generation, and basically keeps affecting future generations down the line? So it's definitely hard work, because it takes a strong mind. You basically have to, like with my relationship, I love the individual that I was with. Like I said, I was with the individual for 14 plus years, but I recognized that it was a generational cycle, just in how I was being treated, how I was made to feel in the relationship, and some of the things that were done to me, that really impacted me and put me into a dark place. But that was the cycle, was that, like I said, we were taught, don't feel emotions. Basically, we didn't talk about things. When things happened in our family, we didn't talk about it. Hey, it happened. We just didn't think about it, put our head down, bury it deep down, and keep pushing. And that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of going through these breakouts right now, is because as I go through and I unearth these emotions within me that have been suppressed so long, and I start to go through my spiritual detox, it's pushing those hidden emotions that I've been buried down so long that I haven't yet gotten to and I haven't yet worked on, is pushing it through my skin, because our skin is the largest organ in our body. So just like our liver and our kidneys filter out various toxins in our body, so does our skin. So, and it just shows the importance of doing it. So, and that's why I say it's hard, because it was definitely hard to leave that relationship and break up in that relationship. But I recognize now that it was a generational cycle, and it was one that I stepped up to the plate to do, and it was very hard, tears and all. I was crying, blowing snot left and right and stuff. So, but I recognized that it was something that needed to be done. I prayed to the divine and my spirit guides and angels and my ancestors to help, comfort me and see me through it if this was something that was meant for my highest purpose. And I have to say that, basically when it came time for me to do what I needed to do, there was a sense of peace that came over me. And I didn't know what kind of fireworks I was going to expect during that situation. But I mean, of course, the other person cried and was upset, but it was one of the most peaceful transitions that I've gone through. So, obviously, so now just looking at working on things and just looking to see what other generational cycles exist within my life that the divine is pointing out to me that needs to be broken. Because we always hear about timelines, or not, maybe not always hear about them, but if you haven't heard about it, time exists on various timelines. You can think, I was explaining to someone the other day, it's like a cake. So as a cake has multiple layers depending upon what kind you have. So imagine when we're born on the very bottom layer of the cake. But there's a version of us that exists on each layer of the cake. So as you go higher in the cake, it basically represents your ascension into that higher path. So and at the very top of the cake is the very best possible version of yourself. You can say it's the version of yourself that's a millionaire. It's a version of yourself that's wealthy, has a happy and loving family, has all of their desires met, that could ever be possible. But the thing is in order to get to that particular level of yourself, we have to look at these generational cycles that exist within our lives. And we have to do the work that's needed to end those cycles. And every time we do the work to end those cycles, we advance a layer up in that cake until we've put in the work, until we're at the very top of that cake. And we're able to embody the frequency of that higher self to where all of our desires, whatever they may be, are being met. Because that's the ultimate objective and the ultimate goal that the divine or God has for us, is he wants us to be the best versions of ourselves. Because despite what we see around us, what the news makes us feel, what the music and everything, I mean, all that stuff is meant to take us away from our divinity and who we truly are and what we truly embody on this world. So without rambling on too much, I mean, just kind of definitely my first video. So obviously a lot of stuff I have to, kind of get out, because it's part of this as well for me, is kind of like part of my purging process and just getting things out that have been trapped within me for so many years. Because I remember from a very young age of just feeling like I was different, and just stand back and taking a look at when people talk to other people, how their words makes other people feel. Because I'm a very empathic individual and I absorb energy very easily. So, and it was just from a very early age, I just remember seeing those things. So if that resonates with you and just kind of recognizing things, then, you definitely have a calling over your life, and the divine is definitely trying to get in contact with you, so that way you can see what things your family needs healing in and what things that you can actually affect change in right now. Because we all, regardless of who we are, there's things in our lives, there's generational cycles in our lives that we have that we can that we're responsible for breaking, especially if we have children that you're responsible for raising. So with that being said, the last thing I'll just say is just set back, turn the TV off, turn the music off, once the kids are put to bed, if you have children, or just whenever you get some quiet time, just think to yourself, what are some generational, some generational cycles that exist in my life right now that need to be broken? And that's all you have to do, is just ask that question, and then just be observant in your world and what's going on. Because the divine will tell you, he will, whether it's like an attitude issue, then he'll start sending people into your life that's embodying the attitude that's going to trigger you. And so say if you're a person that's dealing with anger, because your family lineage before you always had anger issues, so you've been going through your life expressing that anger. Every time somebody comes at you, you feel like you got to jump on them. You feel like you got to, just give it to them and whatnot. How do you know that that's not your generational cycle that you need to break? So instead of having that fire, it's okay to have that fiery energy if somebody is, disrespecting you, but is it necessary to express that anger all the time? Or is it a time to basically recognize, hey, this is a generational cycle of expressing anger because of things happening. So whenever this next trigger happens, I'm going to identify it. When I identify it, instead of expressing myself in the way that I normally express myself through anger, I am going to take the opposite approach for it and seek meekness, or whatever the approach is for yourself. So this is a little bit of kind of an example of kind of how to identify it, because all we've got to do is, just ask the divine. So a lot of times I meditate, like I'm closing my eyes right now. I'm speaking externally because I'm talking to you all, but basically, just closing your eyes and just going within and just talk to yourself on the inside, because the God within you will resonate with the message, because it's sitting there seeking and waiting for you to contact. So that way it can start co-creating with you in this world. So that way you can start breaking these generational cycles together. So that way, in turn, by doing that, we're all creating a better future, and we're not perpetuating these generational cycles that have been put upon us because we didn't ask for them, but they're definitely going to stop with us. So it's with that, definitely I send love to you all. I appreciate you all. Just know, if nobody is in your life right now and you feel lonely, that you're never alone, because the divine is always with you. You just have to reach out and, and just ask for, ask for guidance, ask for clarity, and just say thank you for basically the things that come into your life, because remember, it's never happening to you, but it's happening for you. So with that, just know that I love you. Just know that I'm here with you in spirit. So anytime you need someone to talk to, I'm definitely here for you. So I love you. I love you. I love you. You're the most beautiful person that's ever existed in this world, because we're all one and we're all connected. So it's with that I leave you with this message, and hope that it uplifts your spirit and gives you some hope and joy, especially for those that are going through right now and breaking those generational cycles and feel like giving up. Because I tell you what, boy, there are some days I feel like giving up, and I say to old sign, hey, I'm tired, boss. I'm tired, boss. I'm tired. I don't know if I can do it, but it's because of the divine that we can do anything possible. So it's during those moments that we're meant to lean on to him and ask for his support. So like I said, it's with that I tell you that I love you again, and I hope you have a good day.